Have a good day, everyone. We're here today to discuss about formal logic and inference, Group 2. What is logic? It is defined as a system that aims to draw reasonable conclusions based on given information. This means the goal of logic is to use data to make inferences. Types of logic. Informal logic is a broad terms for any of the various methods of analyzing and evaluating arguments used in everyday life. Formal logic. The abstract study of propositions, statements, or assertively used sentences and of a deductive arguments. Symbolic logic. The use of symbols to denote propositions, terms, and relations in order to assist reasoning. Mathematical logic is the study of formal logic within mathematics. Formal logic. Formal logic, the abstract study of propositions, statements, or assertively used sentences and deductive arguments. A common example of formal logic is the use of syllogism to explain those connections. A syllogism is a form of reasoning which draws conclusion based on two given premises. In each syllogism, there are two premises and one conclusion that is drawn based on the given information. Example, premise A. Socrates is a man. Then premise B. All men are mortal. Conclusion C. Therefore Socrates is mortal. So means premise is a premise, a previous statement or proposition from which another is inferred or follow as a conclusion. Example, if the premise is true, then the conclusion must be true. Right? Then, sa conclusion is the last part of something or an opinion reached after some thought. In formal logic, you use deductive reasoning and the premises must be true. You follow the premises that reach a formal conclusion. There's some example of premises and conclusion, then some explanation. Premises. Every person who lives in Quebec lives in Canada. Everyone in Canada lives in North America. Then the conclusion, every person who lives in Quebec lives in North America. Explanation, only truths are presented here. Tanan nila giingon dire ay tinuod sa tanang statement. Then another example, premises. All spiders have 8 legs. Black widows are type of spider. Conclusion, black widows have 8 legs. Explanation, this argument is not controversial. Another example, premises. Bicycles have 2 wheels. John is riding a bicycle. Conclusion, John is riding on 2 wheels. Explanation, the premises are true and so is the conclusion.
Have a good day, everyone. I'm Mr. Dela Peña. Now I will discuss my part in our lesson, which is inference. What is inference? Inference is the act or process of reaching a conclusion about something from known facts, or a conclusion reached on the basis of evidence and reasoning. So, ang inference daw is isa ka proseso sa pagkabot sa conclusion bahin sa naibalaan nga butang nga kamatauran. So, valid reason. Okay, inference are steps in reasoning, moving from premises to logical consequences. Etymologically, the word infer means to carry forward. To carry forward means proceed or progress. Inference is theoretically traditionally divided into deduction and induction. Deduction inference. What is deduction inference? Deduction inference is deriving logical conclusions from premises known or assumed to be true, with the laws of valid inference being studied in logic. So, ang deduction daw nasa term nga i-deduct ang premises or tawag na to nga statement para makabuog valid nga conclusion. Inferences are made when a person or machine goes beyond available evidence to form a conclusion. With a deductive inference, this conclusion always follows the stated premises. In other words, if the premises are true, then the conclusion is valid. So, ang gamit daw sa deductive inference is always mo follow this sa stated nga premises. So, ang pasabutan ni ang premises is statement 1 or statement A or B. Dapat siya mo follow siya arong may mo siyang valid conclusion. So, na. Next. The task of making deductions consists of 3 stages. A person must understand the meaning of premises. So, dapat daw ang tao makasabot sa meaning sa premises. The second one, they must be able to formulate a valid conclusion. So, dapat makahimo sila og valid nga conclusions. And the last one, a person should evaluate their conclusions to test its validity. So, dapat ang tao i-evaluate nila ang gigamang conclusion para matest nga kini ba is tinuod or valid. Next. Examples of deductions. Mani ang gitawag na to nga premises da kaning 1 ug 2 sa sibabaw. All dolphins are mammals. All mammals have kidneys. Using deduction inference, you can conclude that all dolphins have kidneys. Remember, for this work, both statement must be true. So, ang law sa deduction is dapat always musunod sa premises. Ang premises na to is kaning duha sa ibabaw. All dolphins are mammals. All mammals have kidneys. So, true man na silang duha. Dapat ang conclusion na to true pod or valid tinuod. So, nagamit man tag induction inference. So, sa word nga deduction, atong paggamyan ang statement, ang premises or i-summary na to. So, may mas siyang isa ka sentence na sa last or itawag na to nga conclusion, makabuog kung valid nga conclusion. So ang mahitabo nagamit tag deduction inference. So, ang nahitabo nakahimo taog conclusions, valid conclusion. Ang mahitabo, all dolphins have kidneys. So, kani nga conclusion valid kay nasibo siya sa 1 ug 2 nga statement or premises. Other examples, all birds have feeders. All robins are birds. So, mga napod, sa law sa deduction of inference is always tang sunod sa stated premises. So, ang stated premises is A and B. Kaning all birds have feeders. So, true man ni. All robins are birds. So, true. Dapat ang conclusion mahimo on is valid. So, therefore, robins have feeders. So, nasibo siya sa premises 1, premises 2. And the second examples, it's dangerous to drive on icy streets. The streets are icy now. So, this is the 2 premises. So, sunod gyapon to sa rule sa deductive inference nga isunod na to ang stated premises aron makabuo ta og valid conclusion. So, tinud man it's dangerous to drive in icy streets. Sorry. Then the second one is the streets are icy na mura gud na kanang mag-uwan, delikado jud mag-drive, di ba? And kaning iniguwan basa gid ang kasada. So, tinuod yun ang duha ka premises. So ang mahitabo, so it would be dangerous to drive on the street. Wala ang rules sa deductive inference. The next one, example, all cats have a keen sense of smell. So, kani nga ko ang premises, tinuod ni true. Then, the second premises, Fluffy is a cat. So ang mahitabo, magkamit tigapunta sa rules of deduction nga always ta mosunod sa stated premises. So ang mahitabo, so Fluffy has has a keen sense of smell. So, valid ang conclusion kay nasibo siya sa first and second premises. The last one, example, red meat has iron in it and beef is red meat. So, palagyawan ta sa deduction rules, ang first and second premises dapat masibo ang conclusion. So, aron mahimo siyang valid. So, ang nahitabo, therefore, beef has iron in it. Lisod po og maggama-gama ta, butang ato, therefore, beef has stone on it. Kay, false na yun na, di na valid nga conclusion kay, wala siya nasibo sa first and second premises. Okay lang og, may ra lang og, red meat has stone on it. And, nana, so on. Mabalid siya pero wala may nakabutang hiyato. So kuanto dito valid nga conclusion.
Good day everyone. I am Rozelene Olaer from BSCS 3A. Now we will continue our report. So the second type of inference is the induction inference. The process by which a conclusion is inferred from multiple observations is called inductive reasoning. The conclusion may be correct or incorrect, or correct to within a certain degree of accuracy, or correct in certain situations. So kung mayingon tag induction inference, mao niya tong mga hinuha sa mga klase-klase nga obserbasyon nato. So, ang conclusion is pwede siya correct, pwede po dili. So, in the induction inference, na ay two possible definition. So, first, a conclusion reached on the basis of evidence and reasoning. So, ang conclusion ko no is naka-base sa evidence. Here is the example. All humans are mortal. All Greeks are humans. Then, all Greeks are mortal. So natay duha ka premises diha. Ang 1 ug 2 maunay premises. Then ang 3 maunay atong conclusion. Ang premises di ay mauna ang mga statement nga atong basihan sa atong argument or atong pag-reasoning. The validity of an inference depends on the form of the inference. An inference can be valid even if the parts are false, and can be invalid even if some parts are true. But a valid form with true premises will always have true conclusion. So, medyo libog siya no. So, ang inference ko no can be valid bisan pag naay part nga false. O ang inference can be invalid bisan pag naay parts nga true. Pero, ang valid form with true premises, kung duha ka premises true, will always have true conclusion. For example, consider the form of the following symbological track. So, atong premises are all meat comes from animals. Then, all beef is meat. So, atong conclusion is, therefore, all beef comes from animals. So, atong premises dani are true. Therefore, ang atong conclusion is true. Here is an example of the invalid form. Invalid form means valid imong argument pero ang imong conclusion is wrong. Mo nay naka-invalid form. Example, atong premises are all A are B. Then all C are B. So therefore, all C are A, which is wrong. Kay ang C are B man, dili A. Another example. Our premises are all apples are fruit, which is true. All bananas are fruit, which is true also. Therefore, all bananas are apples, which is wrong or false. Kay dili man apple ang banana. A valid argument with false premise may lead to a false conclusion. Now, kung ang premises nato na isa false, maka-affect jud na siya sa atong conclusion, which is ma-false pod. So, for example, our premises are all tall people are French, which is false kay dili tanang tao nga taas French. Then John Lennon was tall, which is true kay si John Lennon man gud taas. Therefore, John Lennon was French, which is false kay dili man French si John Lennon. So, when a valid argument is used to derive a false conclusion from a false premise, the inference is valid because it follows the form of a correct inference. A valid argument can also be used to derive a true conclusion from a false premise. So, bisan pag atong premises na ay false, makakuha gihapon si jag true conclusion kay valid argument man gihapon si ja. So for example, our premises are all tall people are musicians. So valid si ja pero false kay dili tanang taas nga tao musicians. Next, John Lennon was tall. Valid si ja, then true kay taason man si John Lennon. So therefore, John Lennon was a musician, which is valid and true kay si John Lennon man jud musician. In this case, we have one false premise and one true premise, where our true conclusion has been inferred. So, moto ang mga examples sa number 1 na possible definition sa inference. Now, let's go to the number 2 possible definition. The process of reaching such a conclusion. So, in this case, usa ni siya ka proseso for reaching such a conclusion. For example, evidence. It is the early 1950s and you are an American stationed in the Soviet Union. You read in the Moscow newspaper that a soccer team from a small city in Siberia starts winning game after game. The team even defeats the Moscow team. Inference. The small city in Siberia is not a small city anymore. The Soviets are working on their own nuclear secret weapons program. Nouns. The Soviet Union is a command economy. People and material are told where to go and what to do. The small city was remote and historically had never distinguished itself. Its soccer season was typically short because of the weather. Explanation. In a command economy, people and material are moved where they are needed. Large cities might field good teams due to the greater availability of high-quality players and teams that can practice longer weather or facilities can reasonably be expected to be better. In addition, you put your best and brightest in places where they can do the most good, such as on high-value weapons programs. It is an anomaly for a small city to field such a good team. The anomaly indirectly describes a condition by which the observer inferred a new meaningful pattern that the small city was no longer small. Why would you put a large city of your best and brightest in the middle of nowhere? To hide them, of course. So that was the example of the number 2 possible definition of the induction inference. So asa may nakaprocess adto? Of course, naa si jay evidence, naa si jay nouns, and then the last naa si jay explanation. Next natay gitawag og incorrect inference. An incorrect inference is known as a fallacy. Philosophers who study informal logic have compiled large lists of them, and cognitive psychologists have documented many biases in human reasoning that favor incorrect reasoning. Applications: inference engines, prologue engine, semantic web, Bayesian statistics and probability logic, fuzzy logic, and non-monotonic logic. Mga article ni si Ja nga bahin sa inference. So that's all for today's video. Thank you for listening.